amazing artists, and welcome back to our last week of our paper birds project. I'm super excited about this week because we're going to put our whole paper birdhouse together, and it is going to look something like this, which is super cute and super fun. And you can see our weaving, you can see the bird drawing that we did last week. So I'm really excited to put this together with you guys. But before we get started, of course, let's go over the materials that we will need. So we're going to be making the roof portion of our birdhouse and the bottom part. And for that, I just used painted paper. You can make your own painted paper by just putting random colors on there, or you can use colored construction paper, totally up to whatever you have at home. I also used a little bit of black paper right behind my birds, and that is going to represent the door to our birdhouse. So you'll need some black construction paper, but honestly you could use whatever color paper that you have. Also going to need some glue or tape, some scissors, and optional you can add these feathers. These are just crafting feathers that I found on Amazon for really cheap, but I'm sure that you can find them at a dollar store, at a Walmart, any kind of craft store. These are 100% optional. If you can't get feathers and you still want to add something extra, you could possibly draw some feathers and cut them out and put them on there. Just get creative with what you guys have at home. That's everything that you're going to need, so we're going to get started in just a minute. But first, of course, I want to say our class mantra all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. My mantra: I am positive, I am creative, I am mindful, I am amazing, I am an artist. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing that I am going to do is I'm going to trace my circle onto a black piece of paper. And I just found this container that I'm going to trace, but you can find anything lying around your house. You just don't want it to be too big of a circle to where it's going to cover up your whole entire weaving, but you don't want it to be too small to where your birds look like they can't fit into them. Okay, so find a nice medium-sized circle, and I'm just going to flip it upside down onto my black paper. I'm going to hold it with my left hand, and with my right hand, since I'm right-handed, I'm going to take my pencil and hold it right up against the rim of that container and trace my circle. Now it's not going to be perfect, and that's totally fine. And also, if you can't find something to trace, then you can just freehand your circle. And after you trace or hand draw your circle, we're just going to cut it out. After you cut out your circle, we are just going to glue it onto our birdhouse. So I am going to take my white glue here, but you can use a glue stick or a glue bottle, whatever you have. And I have a little glue brush, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do little dots all the way around the edge. And I'm going to remind myself, dot dot, not a lot, because we do not need a lot of glue. If we use too much glue, then all that glue is going to squish out from the sides, and it's going to get really sticky and messy, and that's not what we want. So I'm just doing little dots all the way around the outside edge of the circle. We don't even need to put any glue in the middle, because if all the edges are glued down, then we will be good to go. The circle will not go anywhere. All right, so I have little dots all the way around my circle, and I'm gonna take it and flip it over and glue it to my birdhouse. Try your best to get it in the center, and I am just going to press down and with both of my hands to make sure all those edges are glued down, and I'm going to count to 10. Let's count together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very nice. Now I am going to do the wiggle test to make sure that is nice and secure, and to do that I'm just going to flip my birdhouse over, wiggle it gently, and if no edges come up, it is good to go. And it looks like my edges are all nice and glued down. And we put this on our birdhouse because that is like the front door to the birdhouse. That's how the birds get inside of their house. Now I have another colorful piece of paper. This is just a painted piece of paper, but you can use whatever color paper you have. It could be construction paper, newspaper even, regular notebook paper will work. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cut out some strips, kind of like how we did for our weft pieces on our weaving. So I'm just starting at the bottom, cutting upwards, making sure it's not too thick of a strip and making sure it's not too skinny. This one's about 2 fingers wide. And we are going to use these strips to be like the roof and the bottom portion of our birdhouse. So I need 3 strips of colorful paper, making sure they're not too fat and making sure they're not too skinny. Alright, so I have 2 pieces for my rooftop, and I have 1 piece for the bottom of my birdhouse. Can you see that? Just right there. Alright, so what I need to do is I'm actually going to do little dots just on these 2 top edges, and that's going to be where I glue my roof down. So I'm going to take my glue again, and right up on the edge I'm going to do little dots all the way down from the top corner to the right side corner first. I'm going to remember dot dot, not a lot, because we don't need a lot of glue, just enough to hold it in place. Oops, I got a little bit too much glue there, but I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to go down to that one corner. Now I'm going to go down the other side to the left corner, doing little dots. Once you have your little dots on the top 2 sides of your birdhouse, you're going to take 1 strip and glue it to the top like that. And we want to make sure this strip is nice and secure. So I'm just going to hold it down and of course count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it might want to come up just a little bit, but that's okay. Once that glue dries, it'll be nice and secure. And since we covered up those glue dots up at the top, I'm just going to put a couple more for my second part of my roof to make sure that stays in place. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Alright, and I think those pieces are going to want to come up a little bit, so we might have to hold it down for just a little bit longer to make sure that nothing is going to fall off of your birdhouse. Alright, once I think it is secure, I am going to flip it over, wiggle it gently, not too rough because we don't want our weaving to fall apart, and I think that is good to go. So now I am going to do the bottom part of my birdhouse. And just like with the roof, right on top of the birdhouse, just down here on this bottom edge, I'm going to do little dots. Alright, and I'm going to try to line up the bottom strip of paper in the middle. I don't want it to be over to the left too much, and I don't want it to be over to the right too much. I'm going to try my best to keep it in the middle. And I'm also going to line up the bottom of this strip of paper with the bottom of my birdhouse. Also trying to keep it in the middle. And hold it down and count to 10. And of course, every time we glue something down, we need to do the wiggle test. I'm going to flip it over, wiggle it a little bit, and if it stays put and the edges stay on there, then we are good to go. Yay! So now this birdhouse is really coming together. It has a roof, it has a door right here for our birds to go inside. It's got the bottom part. And if you want, if these edges are too long, then you can just trim them off a little bit. And I think I want to trim mine just a little bit. Just a little bit on either side. Yeah, that looks a lot better. All right, so now we get to cut out our birds and we're gonna glue it right in the center. And we made that cool texture on our birdhouse last time, so you need to be super careful whenever you're cutting out your birds to make sure you don't cut off any of those little pieces. So just go around. Remember our scissor safety whenever you're cutting something out. Our scissors are staying in the same place. They are just opening and closing, and this hand, our lazy hand, is going to rotate the paper and show our scissors where to cut. I've cut out my sweet little birds, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue them to my birdhouse. So I'm just going to scooch my birdhouse over just a little bit, and I'm going to take my glue and of course do little dots all the way around the edge on the back of our birds. Alright, I went all the way around the edge, and on these little parts that are sticking out, I just put a little teeny dot of glue to make sure they also stick down. And I am going to carefully line up my birds with my circle as best as I can, and I'm going to press down, make sure all those edges are glued down. So I'm going to hold it down and of course count to 10. And last but not least, to add a cool effect, this is completely optional. You do not have to do this, but if you have some like craft feathers, I have a whole bag that I just found on Amazon for relatively cheap. And there's two things that you could do. You could glue it, you could pick up your birds a little bit and stick it under there. But I think what I'm gonna do is I found a little opening on my weaving. So I am just going to tuck my feather right in to where that weaving is, just like that. So now it is tucked inside of my weaving, and I think that's a lot easier than trying to glue it under our birds. So I'm just going to find a little opening and tuck the feather into the actual weaving. And that is it. We are now finished with our paper birdhouses. I seriously cannot wait to see how your paper birdhouse comes together. I know it's going to be amazing because you guys are amazing. All right, I hope you guys had a lot of fun, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.